Greetings and welcome to the ROI Clear podcast. My name is Ray Hightower, and today we are fortunate to have as our guest Mr. Dustin Heiner. Dustin is founder of MasterPassiveIncome.com, and he's also the founder of the REWBCON conference, the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference that's happening in Phoenix, Arizona this year. So he's going to tell us all about that. ROI Clear listeners, please join me in welcoming Dustin Heiner. Welcome, Dustin.
Hey, Ray, thank you so much for having me on the show, man. I really appreciate it. And I love real estate investing. In fact, that's how I like the term successfully unemployed, basically finding a way to make money to provide for myself and my family without working that dead end job, that just over broke job. But now I just, have fun, going to the gym, hang out with my family and come on podcasts and talk to great people like you. So I appreciate having me on, Ray.
I am grateful to have you here, and our listeners are grateful to be listening to you. Why don't we kick this off? You kind of got a little bit into this in your brief intro right here, but we like to start off with an elevator pitch. And for those who are new to the ROI Clear podcast, Dustin is on an elevator with someone he wants to influence. So we'll ask you, Dustin, what would you say to that person in the course of an elevator ride?
I would say that we all in the world need to become financially independent, successfully unemployed. And what I did was I invested in real estate. I bought single family homes, residential, 4 units and below. And eventually I had enough properties where I didn't need to work for somebody else. I was blessed to be able to quit when I was 37 years old. And it's actually not as hard as you might think. In fact, it's more risky to work for somebody else who can fire you, lay you off. Bad things can happen. If you can't work, you're not going to make money. Instead, make passive income. And I suggest owning real estate, and that property works for you without you working. Get out of doing active income where you work 1 hour, get paid an hour, then start getting passive income. You work one time, get paid over and over and over again.
So you're saying essentially people are getting away from trading their time for money and they're doing something else. That's what you're talking about here.
Absolutely, 100%. In fact, not just doing something else, it's a whole different train of thought. We're taught all our life to go to school, get good grades, get in thousands of dollars debt in college, and then get a piece of paper called it it's a degree. Then you go find a career, quote unquote career someplace else, and you work for that company until they either lay you off or you're 50 years later when you're 65, 70 years old. And then you retire in what you manage to save your entire life and hope that the money doesn't run out. But that we're all taught that to be active earners, where we make money by 1 hour spent getting paid for that 1 hour. Instead, it's a different train of thought where you invest in something. You write a book, you write a song, you create a podcast, you do other things that whatever it is continually makes you money, where you're making passive instead of active income.
Excellent. So you create something of value that works for you. I think it's remarkable. Now, I need to ask you about your T-shirt. On your T-shirt, for the listeners who are not watching, but the watchers can see this, Dustin's wearing a T-shirt that says Successfully Unemployed. Got to tell us about that T-shirt, man. What's going on there?
Absolutely. So as I was quitting my job, I was telling people that I would say, I'm quitting my job. And they said, you're retiring? You're 35 years old. I'm like, well, I'm not necessarily retiring, because they would say, what are you going to do the rest of your life? And I'm like, well, I have plenty of stuff. I'd rather build businesses. I'd rather do things to help people. I'm going to stay active. I'm not just going to be fishing every single day, even though I love fishing. I'm not going to do that every day. I still have to be productive and active. So instead of saying retiring early or quitting my job, what I said was, I'm now successfully unemployed. It's not that I'm unemployable. There's another term people like to use as unemployable. I'm not unemployable. In fact, I would literally pay Warren Buffett to work for him because of the knowledge that I would gain, the network that I would gain, all the wisdom, as well as the money I would make just by being around him. So I'm not unemployable. It also sounds a little arrogant. I think it's really kind of positive where you say, I'm successfully unemployed. I've successfully found a way to make money to provide for myself and my family without working that dead end job, that just over broke job.
Excellent. And those of you who are listening, including Warren Buffett, Dustin is ready to pay you, Warren Buffett, for an opportunity to work for you. So Warren, if you're listening, or if someone on our podcast knows Warren Buffett, reach out to Warren, because he wants to Dustin will pay him for a job. So I think that's a wonderful way to look at it, because with working with someone like Warren, that's a mentorship relationship. That's not just a job. And it sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you have a belief in mentorship And correct me if I'm wrong. Is that true? And if it's true, tell us a little bit about how that belief came about in your life.
Absolutely. And I think everybody has the idea of mentorship in them, even though they
Yes.
might not think so. They might think, after college, they're working at a job and they see somebody teaching stocks or teaching real estate or whatever. And they're like, oh, I don't want to pay that person. Well, just realize you just paid thousands of dollars to a couple people at a university. They're
Yes.
mentoring you in a sense, but you're already spending that money. And imagine if you spent $100,000 or get in loans and get in debt for $100,000 and they get a piece of paper and hopefully find a job and hopefully get a career, quote unquote career, not get laid off or fired.
Yes.
But instead of that, let's say instead of getting into thousands and thousands of dollars of debt, you then invested that money in real estate. I personally suggest real estate. You might do stock market or whatever, but I love real estate. And that property then works for me. Now, thinking about mentorship, if you've already paid for college, hundreds of thousands of dollars for college and university, why not, hire somebody who's already there with you? Like I said, I would literally pay Warren Buffett to be around him. I would literally do that because of the knowledge I would gain. And so here's the thing, Ray, you're going to actually, everybody listening, you're going to realize this. You're going to pay with one of two ways. You're going to pay with your time or your money. That's the way. If you want to fast track it, you're going to pay with your money and you'll fast track it, skip all the hurdles. But what is the one commodity that everybody spends and can never make any more of? It's time. You can never make any more time in your life. You can't spend money to get a second of extra time. But what you can do is you can spend money to fast track. If it's going to take you, I'll say it this way. So it took me about 8 years to have enough properties to eventually quit my job. I have 30 plus properties, each one making me $250 a month in passive income. Eventually I was like, why am I working here? So 8 years, now fast forward now, I started coaching people how to do this because I had extra time and it was fun. I enjoyed doing it. My students are quitting in 3 and 4 years, 5 years, even 6 years, but it's shortening the time. They pay me whatever little money that they pay me. I help them make in their investing and save by buying properties lower. I always make sure that they're buying properties lower, they make money, but the time difference, they're quitting their job in 3 and 4 years. Imagine if you were going to quit it in 40 years after working, and retiring, quote unquote retiring. Instead, if you can make it in 4 years, that's so much of your life back that you can do whatever you want. So wholeheartedly now absolutely believe that paying to fast track your investing, your knowledge, your education, and then saving your life, it's worth all the money in the world.
Wonderful. And, Dustin, I got to say, I enjoy interviewing achievers like you and seeing what you've done. Like you said, you've accumulated a portfolio of properties that pay you passive income. And because of that, you were able to leave your job, just over broke job at the age of 37. That's remarkable. I was wondering if we could backtrack just a bit. And if you could tell us how you got started. You said it took you 8 years to become independent. Some of your students, they're able to do it in 3 years because essentially you're like an accelerant for them. You're like gasoline poured on a fire for them to get them going quickly. So maybe you could share with us a little bit about your experience, how you got started. And I'm sure our listeners would love to hear about that.
Absolutely. And so I was following the same exact thing we're all taught, go to school, get good grades, get in thousands of dollars in debt in college and get a piece of paper, go get a career. I was doing that. In fact, I got the most risk-free job I could ever think of. I was in California at the time. I got a job at the local county government doing IT at the local county government. Those are things that California is not going away. IT is not going away, and government is not going away. Most stable, secure job ever. Now, here's what happened. I was doing that, but at the same time, I'm entrepreneurial, started a few businesses and bought one rental property. And that rental property made me money without working, which was so amazing. And I knew I needed to be an investor. But you know what happens, right? Life gets in the way. My wife and I started having kids. So if you can see this in the video, you can see the kids in the background. I have 4 kids now. Wow. But here's what happened. This is what really shoved me to be a real estate investor. When my wife had our 4th child, I'm working at, normal desk job, 9 to 5 desk job in the local county government. I go on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and bonds of the baby and all that good stuff. Well, after about 2 weeks, I go back to work. And in that same week that I go back to work on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? And I said, sure. And I hung up the phone. And I thought for a second, my goodness, why are they calling me to the office? This isn't normal. And
Yes,
I've seen
yes.
plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon is not a good sign. And so I started thinking, I might actually get laid off here, because there was some rumors a couple months prior that there was some like fund issues, like income issues, or tax revenue issues at the time. But I immediately shook it off. I said, there's no way. I've got so much seniority. I've been here 14 years. I got so much seniority. Shook it off. I got up and I walked down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, Ray, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short, but every single step that I took, it felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And it felt like my feet became lead bricks, because the weight of potentially losing my job was really weighing on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed, and I see a secretary there, super sweet, nice old lady. And she says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? So I go and I take my seat, and she's kind of grinning at me sheepishly and kind of trying to console me with her eyes. She knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. So I go and I take my seat and I sit there. And as I sit there, I start thinking about my life. This whole plan that people told me, get a career and all that sort of stuff, getting in debt and everything, if that gets taken away from me right now, I started thinking, did I just waste my life doing this? And oh my goodness, how am I going to feed my family? Does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the nervousness, the anxiousness is just weighing on me. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up. Out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hands, and she is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying, but you could tell her world's been rocked. She passes by me, and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come into the office? So I get up and I go into his office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. Well, Ray, I take that layoff notice and I go and I sit at my desk and I realize two things sitting right there. And this is the reason why I tell the story. Well, the first one, I realized I got to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. So I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county. Different department, wasn't having issues. So check. The second thing, sitting there in that chair just after getting the light off, I realized I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So what I decided was, because remember, I knew I needed to be an investor. I wanted to be an investor, but life got in the way. I said, no longer will I ever let life get in the way. I am now an investor. It may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So fast forward the story, started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250 or more in passive income. Eventually I had 30 plus properties. And I was like, man, even though I'm making $75,000 a year here, I'm wasting my life. I'm losing money. So the last part of the story, I went to my new boss, great boss and all. And I said, I've been working there a couple of years. I said, hey boss, here's your layoff notice. I gave a piece of paper, you joking and laughed and everything. He said, well, Dustin, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't have to do anything. I literally own real estate. It works for me and I make money without working. Last part of the story. If you remember that short hallway that got longer and longer and longer. Well, I walked to and from my job and a mile and a half every single day. I've done it 1,000 times. I walked away from my job for the very last time. I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. And this is what this is the reason why I tell the story, because you listen to this, you need to realize this. You will never be paid what you are worth. Your boss will not pay you what you're worth. And this is how you'll know that. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of their pocket. If you got paid what you're worth, they would go broke. Instead, if you get out of that grind and you get yourself to where you're financially independent, now you have 40 plus hours of your life back to build businesses, serve people, help everybody, be with your family. That's where I eventually realized, my goodness, financial independence is the best way to go, and passive income is the only real way to get there. Now I have 40 plus hours of my life. Now I build businesses. Now I have literally 4 businesses that make me money. And the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference is what we've been talking about. I built a conference business because I have so much extra time on my hands and I help people. So I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions.
You know what? This is wonderful. The excitement behind your voice and I love just the saga. You know, you said in government, you were in IT, you were in California, and there was no way you could possibly get laid off except you were laid off. And you were fortunate enough, you know, as you said, praise God, you were able to get another job also in IT and also in California. But at that point, between those two jobs, you made the decision that you would never get caught in that position ever again. And you know, that's like the final, you know, that's the breaking point, the straw that breaks the camel's back, where you just have to make that decision. It's just wonderful the way you went through all of that. And then finally, after acquiring more properties and achieving financial independence, you were able to give a layoff notice to your boss. I'm curious, did your boss ever invest in your deals?
That's a great question. In fact, somewhat, he was wanting to, in a sense, like we talked about that sort of stuff as I was about ready to quit. And so what was actually funny, so no, he did not, but the very last day, he bought pizza, you know, he's like, hey, you know, like kind of going away party. And he got us into all the people in my department into a room and said, and actually interviewed me. Hey, Dustin, how are you doing this? I want to inspire the people that they can invest in real estate. Yes. Like, that's awesome. So I was educating everybody. It was a lot of fun. But so I love investing. And so I have yet to create my own like syndication or a fund or anything like that, because honestly, like my wife and I, our goal was to own the properties so that we could eventually give them to our kids, you know, creating generational wealth. Right. When you get a 30-year fixed, eventually that house gets paid off and it's free and clear. You give them to your kids. And so that's what we've been doing. But that's a great question though.
Okay. So you're not doing syndications. You wholly own all of your properties. That's your strategy.
Absolutely. But at the same time, I personally invest in other people's syndications too that are good investments. I go ahead and do that. In fact, I know, I've always played Monopoly since I've been young. And I would love to get into hotels, and not necessarily like I own a hotel. I'm not saying that, but I invested in a syndication where we have two hotels. I think it's Missouri. It's doing fantastically well. And so it's a lot of fun having that as well.
It's really interesting. You invested in two hotels. You think they're in Missouri, which tells me that you are truly a passive investor. You know, and you like and you trust the operator, the syndicator who's running those. And clearly they're trustworthy, because after you sent them your investment, they're sending you distributions and K1s and reports. You're probably getting monthly reports on the CapEx that they're doing and other things that are happening at the property. This is an amazing company.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, you got to tell us about the conference. I'm just going to open it up. Go ahead. Let's do an elevator pitch about the conference, and then we'll drill down into that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I created a conference that I wanted when I started investing back in 2006. There wasn't anything like this. There wasn't a great podcast like ROI Clear with Ray. I mean, there wasn't great things like this out there for me. There was barely Zillow out there and nothing else. And what I realized was I was doing it all by myself, and I'm a doer. So I pushed through all the hard times, but most people don't. And so what I started doing was I was coaching people. Eventually I had hundreds of students. And so I got a network, basically a group of us as I'm coaching them, but we're all friends online. And they said, hey, can we do a meetup? And I said, that's a great idea. But fast forward, I said, let me call my friends. Let me call up these other podcasters, these other expert real estate investors who have their own students, their own audience. Let's bring us all together and create a community. Now, Ray, you've probably been to plenty of these, but most real estate conferences, you'll walk in the main hall or main room. There's a booth in the back. You kind of walk past the booth, like, what's that booth for? It's all hype and sales pitch from the front, from the stage. And they say, it's normally $1 billion, but it's $1,000 today. Run to the back and give us all your money. This is the opposite of that. This is leading with value. Just like you're here listening to Ray, keep doing that. Ray's bringing value. Same thing with the conference. I want to bring value. So this year in Phoenix, Arizona, we have 43 expert investors coming to speak, and we have hundreds of investors flying from all over the country to build a community. It's not about taking, it's all about giving. I have found that with this conference, 43 expert investors speaking. We have keynotes. It's a 3-day in-person event. Last year, everybody was blown away. We have just about everybody coming back this year. It's all about you as the investor, helping you to get the content, the basic education that you need, get around the right like-minded people. And we do have sponsors, companies that are great companies that we use in our business. They're coming and say, hey, these are sponsors that we use, or these are companies that we use them in your business. We vouch for them. income. But this is all about you as the investor, getting you, and it's not just single family homes. It's everything. Multifamily, land investing, storage units, Airbnb, like you name it, we're covering everything. It's an intermediate, beginner, and advanced. It's literally, I created it because I wanted something like this. And I said, you know what? I have the means to now. Let me create something that's going to help so many people.
Wonderful. And it essentially, I mean, you know this term from IT, you're eating your own dog food, in that you created something that you wanted for yourself because you have that background in real estate, and you created something that would have been useful to you in the beginning and even in the intermediate and your current career. I'm sure you get a lot out of the conference too, with the networking and all the speakers you get to hang out with.
Even at your level,
yes, yes.
I grow so much. I learn, in fact, I learn other great ways to invest. I find other investors I can invest with. Other people want to invest with me. It's all about helping each other. Now, here's one caveat I will tell all of your audience. If you come as a taker, we're like, oh, what can I get? What can I get? What can I get? This is probably not the conference for you. This is all about how we can help each other. It's all about community. It's all about gathering together to help each other out. And the people that are givers, they get so much more in return. I'm a giver. I love giving, and going to my own conference, I get so much because I'm giving so much. And so that's the type of people. So if you're honestly, like everybody listening to your podcast, Ray, they seem like they're probably going to be the right fit, because if they're takers, they're probably not listening to your podcast. So more than likely, everybody here is the right type of personality. Everybody on my podcast, if they're a taker, they don't listen to me anymore. They kind of move on. Givers, they come. In fact, my podcast now, it's a Master Passive Income podcast. I'm close to 1.5 million downloads on my podcast. It's fantastic having such a, it's not the numbers, it's about the reach that I can help so many more people. I don't charge them. It's like, this is free, giving all this information out. I want to help you. So it's all about giving. So like I said, if you're listening to the ROI Clear podcast, you're probably the perfect fit, because anybody else that's a wrong fit, they probably don't listen to Ray, because Ray's a giver and he attracts like-minded people. And that's what I'm doing. All of my speakers, just like Ray, just like myself, all givers. In fact, I've had, Ray, it's kind of funny, I've had a lot of people also that have their own audiences and everything that want to speak, but it's nothing against them. They're just not the right fit. They have to be invited. They have to be the right fit. And so the type of people are the people that we want to be around as like-minded investors. Yes.
Wow, that's a lot. And how can people buy tickets for the conference? How can they learn more info about it? Where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, because I would love to see all of you invest, I'm going to give you a promo code. They give you 10% off. If you use a promo code, wait, did we created one for you, Ray, didn't we? I believe we did. Yeah.
You know what? We'll include that in the show notes. We'll include the promo code in the show notes. Yeah. But go ahead. It's more important for them to, it's more important for them to go to the conference. So if they get the promo code, that's good. But the URL,
Here's what we'll do. I'll literally, as soon as we get off, I'll make sure it's there. Use a promo code RAY, RAY. Or if you need to, if that doesn't work, somehow use a promo code podcast. I'll know you come from Ray's podcast. And go to REWBCON.com. It's Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, abbreviated REWBCON.com. REWBCON.com. Use a promo code Ray or the promo code podcast. I'll give you 10% off, especially if you're in Phoenix. You're already here. People are flying from all over the country to be here, to be in this community. You need to be here. Oh, and Ray, I do have a free course I love to give out. Do you mind if I give that out to everybody?
Please. Yeah, you're adding value. Please, go ahead.
Awesome. I love giving. It's literally, I've had people invest in real estate just by this one course. If you text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777. Rental to 33777, or you can go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word, /free course. I'll give it to you, show you how to find an area anywhere in the country you need to invest, build the business to do it right, make sure you're making $250 a month in passive income, create generational wealth that you can literally give these properties to your kids and scale it to become successfully unemployed. But yeah, you can also find me on the Master Passive Income podcast. And it was kind of funny, Ray, you'd actually appreciate this. If anybody searches in iTunes or Spotify, real estate investing, you'll find me. Like usually it's the big company, or we all know, but the big podcasting company. Or me. It's like 1 and 2. And I was like, man, and so it's right next to each other. So I just love helping people out. You can even find me on Instagram, the Dustin Heiner. THE Dustin Heiner. And honestly, Ray, I'm not that arrogant. It's the only handle I could come up with, the Dustin Heiner. But it's been great, Ray. I love helping people. I would love to see everybody.
Heiner. Yes, you are the Dustin Heiner. Wonderful. We're coming towards the end of our time together. I love your energy, man. I love your energy, and I know our listeners love your energy too. Can you share with us, what is it that you're reading or listening to right now that you would recommend to our listening audience?
Well, one thing I would absolutely say, there's 2 things I'll give. Number 1, the Bible. I literally either listen to the Bible or read the Bible every single day, multiple times a day. This, read to my family, all that sort of stuff. So 100% the Bible. On top of that, what I also do is I learn my craft of real estate investing. So I'm always listening to other things. I can't give you anything specific, but like literally I'm always, and I'm a podcast listener. So I have lots and lots of podcasts I listen to. But if I were to give one resource that really helped me, was learning that passive income was a thing. For me, it was 2 things. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Most people have read that. Fantastic book. But here's Financial Independence. It is The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clausen. Amazing book. Eye-opening. That's a brilliant book. And if you want to get even better at being a giver, you need to read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So amazing. Those are 3 books you got to be a part of.
We'll make sure that we include links to those in the show notes. And Dustin, please let us know and let everyone know how they can get in touch with you. What URL do you want them to go to?
So you go to masterpassiveincome.com, master, M-A-S-T-E-R, passiveincome.com. Plus, like I said, I actually get Instagram DMs. I love chatting with people, helping people out. But masterpassiveincome.com, check me on the podcast, Master Passive Income Podcast, or even YouTube. I put out lots of YouTube stuff. Just give it, like literally, like my podcast is mostly me giving out free content. Literally is giving out. I rarely do interviews, but no, it's great. But yeah, I love being able to help people. And I love that you have ROI Clear. It's a fantastic podcast. Everybody needs it. Like every week, you should be coming back and listening to ROI Clear.
Thank you so much, Dustin. Thank you for sharing your background and your passion and your interests and knowledge sources with our audience. Thank you for sharing the info about the conference that you have coming up in Phoenix, REWBCON. And it's wonderful to talk to you today. So thank you for joining us here at ROI Clear.
Thank you, Ray.